We made it inside the mausoleum for Qin Shi Huang, the Terracotta Museum, and just immediately you're gonna see a bunch of like people trying to offer you audio guides, trying to offer you like in-person tour guides. But we actually got this audio guide which cost 40 CNY or around like 7 American. But the Terracotta Warriors right here is celebrating the reign of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of all of China, who reigned a short-lived Qin Dynasty from 221 BC to 206 BC. And so while it was only around 14-ish years, he did establish the system of imperial rule in China, which would last for the next 2,000 years. So yes, he was from the state of Qin. He united China from the Warring States period. And yes, the Terracotta Warriors does defend him as he tries to seek immortality and defense in the afterlife. We just finished walking through pit 1 out of the 3 pits, and pit 1 is by far the largest. I low-key think they put all the non-damaged soldiers in the front because it looks a little too perfect, while in the back there's a lot of pieces and remnants of kind of like collapsed soldiers and pillars and the partitions. Actually, there's a section in the back that has soldiers that have been reconstructed from like hundreds of different pieces, and they were just put together again. But right now we are in November. It is actually in low season right now, so it's not that crowded, which we're very lucky. Compared to the summer, it's peak season, and I've seen other YouTube videos where you can barely walk around. So we definitely came at the right time, and it's definitely good to come in autumn. Autumn also gives you fall foliage like this, but the Terracotta Warriors again guard Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of all of China. He was known for very brutal legalist policies. He induced a lot of slave labor, and he ruled with an iron fist. The first parts of the Great Wall of China, for example, are literally built over the bodies of dead laborers. They would just put bricks on top of bodies and continue building, and that just gives you an example of how little of a F he gave when building his massive projects. However, although he was very brutal of a ruler, he is still regarded as a great Chinese emperor because he set that 2,000-year precedent of Chinese rule in which imperial dynasties would continue following. As I tell more stories of Qin Shi Huang, we're going to go over to pit 3, and the numbers are actually associated the order in which these pits were discovered, 1, 2, and 3, but going from pits 1, 3, and then 2 is the recommended path. Walking outside of pit 3, it's definitely the smallest of them all. Pit 1 is the largest, it's 230 meters by 62 meters and houses 6,000 soldiers and horses. Pit 3, on the other hand, only has around 68 to 72 soldiers. It actually split into the excavation zones, one of which shows the ruins at which it was excavated, hence everything's destroyed, and one of them shows the reconstructed terracotta soldiers, in which many of them are headless. Pit 3 actually is known as the headquarters of pits 1 and 2.
There's actually a lot of things that happened to the pits before they were even discovered. There was a fire at the end of the Qin Dynasty, and that took out all the wooden chariots. So really the only things that are left are the clay pieces. And even then, they had to do a lot of piecing together. Horses used to have wooden chariots just dragged behind them with soldiers sitting on top of them. But since they burned, obviously the soldiers that were standing on top collapsed and probably broke into a million pieces. So.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Andrew.
No problem.
I just walked out of pit 2, and I do think, honestly, it is the least impressive of the 3 pits. While it is humongous, a lot of it actually is just barren, and it's excavated, and it has the least amount of actual soldiers themselves. However, pit 2 is significant in that it gives us and historians more insight on the military organization of the Qin Empire, the ritual statecraft, and also funerary practices of Qin Shi Huang. Pit 2, however, do have these soldiers in these glass cases. However, in China, you do have to squeeze to get anywhere close to these glass pits, as there are crowds of people and you do have to compete against other tourists. Right after you leave pit 2, you're going to be into the exhibition hall, which is going to show the life of Qin Shi Huang and also the formations of the Qin Empire. Once you walk into the left, you're going to see a biography of Qin Shi Huang, how he becomes the king of Qin, and how he defeats the 6 other kingdoms and unifies China for the first time after the Warring States period. Although I mentioned before that Qin Shi Huang was very cruel and ruled with legalist policies, one could argue that this was completely necessary at the time as China was newly unified. His main accomplishments actually include standardizing currency, language, and rules and regulation throughout his newly created empire. Lastly, he creates communication channels and transport networks throughout his empire in arguably the greatest unification effort in all of Chinese history. Now, as we head toward the exit, I'm going to say bye to Qin Shi Huang, but we're going to go actually to the Huaqing Palace, but I would definitely recommend going here. This is a must-see place in Xi'an if you're stopping here, and I definitely recommend it going in the autumn. We're finally in Huaqing Palace. This was like a 15-minute DD away from the Terracotta Warriors, and this is the site of 2 very important stories. First, of Xuanzong and his consort Yang Guifei in the Tang Dynasty, and also the Xi'an Incident in 1936 with Chiang Kai-shek. Walking inside, you're introduced with this beautiful fountain and also the autumn foliage. But if you continue walking straight, you're going to see a lot of other historical stuff. Taking a few steps now into Huaqing Palace, we're going to reach the site of the Xi'an Incident of 1936, arguably one of the most important historical events in the Republican era of Chinese history. At the time, Japan was increasingly militant, already occupying Manchuria and setting up the puppet state of Manchuria Manchukuo and quickly marching southward to China proper. The leader of the Republic of China at the time, Chiang Kai-shek, the leader of the Nationalist Party, also the ruling government of Taiwan today, had a very important decision to make. Should I briefly stop the Chinese Civil War and ally with my bitter enemy, the Communists, to curb these Japanese invaders, or should I try to stop them myself? Chiang Kai-shek was very, very adamant, so much so that he would not acquiesce to working with his communist enemies. So subsequently, Chiang Kai-shek's top general, General Zhang, forces him to sign a treaty after detaining him in a room, allying themselves with the communists. Chiang Kai-shek reluctantly agrees, and so for the rest of the Second Sino-Japanese War, there is an alliance between the nationalists and the communists to stave off Japanese aggression. And it's only until 1945 does Japan completely leave Chinese homeland because of the help of the United States, who allied with China. And subsequently, the Chinese Civil War then continues after from 1945 to 1949, in which Chiang Kai-shek loses, is deposed to the island of Taiwan, and the People's Republic of China is formed in 1949. So as we're walking around right here, this is his bodyguard's office, making sure that he doesn't escape. And then we're going to walk very closely towards the room in which he's actually detained. Chiang Kai-shek was sleeping over here as he was detained by his generals. As we go over here, you're going to see Chiang Kai-shek's field headquarters. We're going to see the nationalist son of the Republic of China, also the current flag of Taiwan today. And we're going to see, it's really hard to see right here, but the current portrait of Sun Yat-sen. He's the one who incites the Xinhai Revolution to revolt against the last imperial dynasty, the Qin Dynasty. But also you see a very long table in his field headquarters, along with a lot of teacups, as well as a map of China itself. We're walking outside of Huaqing Palace. Actually, very unfortunate, we did not get to see the bathhouse, which is low-key the main attraction. We only saw the Xi'an Incident site. What do you think?
It was cool seeing those bricked up stone soldiers.
Okay, Okay, right now we are at the bell tower in central Xi'an. This is kind of like a roundabout in which a lot of cars are going around. Today I met 你的名字是什么
Shirley
OK Shirley 觉得她的服装很美，然后想要如果你可以介绍一下给我们的美国的观众，你现在是穿哪一朝代的一个服装，然后可以这个服装有什么意义的吗？可以给我们一点历史吗？什么背景？
这是明朝的服装，然后这个脖子上戴的是璎珞，
OK
应该是璎珞。
然后你现在戴在头发上都戴什么？
我戴的是珠钗，然后发饰。
你在西安是专门干嘛？
我是来旅游，就是因为我是回族，所以西安有很多回族，我就来尝这里的美食，然后看这里的美景。
回族就是
穆斯林
人，
穆斯林，中国的穆斯林。
你是穆斯林吗？
啊？
你是穆斯林
？Yes。
哦 ，OK，very interesting。
穆斯林是由阿拉伯人从丝绸之路来到中国的，然后在中国与汉族通婚形成的回族，然后世代传承下来，我们就形成了就是回族。
好 ，OK， 谢谢 Shirley， 谢谢。Okay, I'm gonna end this video right here, but like to my channel, subscribe and share if you want. Check out my other Chinese and hiking videos as well. And bye, Andrew. Say something. Bye.
再见，再见。
老天保佑，金山银山前路有。老天教唆别管江湖龙虎斗。老天叮嘱这辈子。